Good morning. Welcome to our session for news and service delivery with Cloud ALM for Service. My name is Ulrike Hormann. I'm Chief Product Owner for Cloud ALM for Service. And I want to show you a little bit in the system what we have delivered, what new features we have delivered in the last year, what has changed also from a content perspective, and also give you a little bit of an outlook, what are the next things that are supposed to come. Before we start, I can see some SAP colleagues here in the audience. I can see also some customers. Just from the customers, out of curiosity, which of you has already used Cloud ALM for Service? Not a surprise, I have to say, because of course we have cloud reporting and we see the usage. So we see at the moment that the usage on the customer side is still a little bit behind the usage numbers for Cloud ALM for operations and implementations. So I'm going to spend some time initially also showing you over all the functions, and then we'll talk about what has changed. First of all, just to clarify, when we talk Cloud ALM for Service, we are talking service as in service delivery. Service is a very, very broad term used inside SAP for a lot of things. When we say service, we here in this session mean service contracts, services delivered as part of service contracts, such as SAP Max Attention, SAP Active Attention, Enterprise Support, Preferred Success, and so on. Yeah, so this term will show up, will come up again and again and again. And typically what happens is customers sign such a service contract, get entitlement for certain service deliveries by SAP consultants typically. Sometimes can also be third-party consultants that are involved. And what happens during these services, there are different times, is that SAP colleagues or the service delivery consultants look at a customer's system landscape, customer's project setup, customer's organizational setup, and try to proactively identify what could potentially be a problem and give recommendations to the customer. Yeah, so there are some really technical services where the outcome is you have to implement a newer version of this node, you have to create an index, you have too many users that have SAP all in your system, but there are also more organizational or architectural services that look at what's your testing strategy as a customer, what's your archiving strategy, and so on. For these service deliveries, in the last sort of 20 years, the delivery approach has to some extent been via solution manager that has worked with different degrees of success, I would say. So at the moment, what we see a lot of times, the information, the outcome of the service deliveries is still handed over to customers via emails, via PowerPoint, sometimes via Excel. And we are in the process, we started 2.5 years ago to unify this, to centralize this, both from inside SAP, but also, of course, for our customers. Yeah, so the idea is that, for instance, such simple things as what are the service deliveries that are scheduled for the next 3 months at my customer. To find that out, that we have one central platform where it's easy to find these things out. What was the outcome of the services that were delivered in the last 3 months? What is the status of the actionable items that were identified there? Who is following up on them? That we have a central platform and everything is handled via the central platform. So, idea is service preparation. That's typically stuff like, do we have system access? Do we have all information that we need up front? So sometimes things like landscape information, organizational information, sometimes also such simple things as where's the physical location that I need to get to? Yeah, so some services are delivered on-site, some are delivered remote. If I need to go on-site, it would be good to, first of all, know where do I have to go to as a service delivery consultant. Some customers have security training that you have to take before you can go on-site. So maybe there's some training information that I can already provide to the service delivery consultants. Yeah, so it's both ways, customers to SAP, but also SAP to customers, to prepare the service, then to actually deliver the service. That also includes things like a service execution engine, that I can have machine assistance in evaluating and collecting the data, evaluating the data, and identifying the issues that need to be followed up, sharing these results with the customer, and then for the customer, if it's an SAP Max Attention or Active Attention customer, also with the help of the TQM or engagement architect to follow up, to make sure the follow-up is done in a timely manner. So central, and maybe I can already go a little bit here into our system to just show you. So central to all our activities regarding service deliveries on the customer side is the service delivery center. Yes, so you have this area here in service delivery center. This is where everything takes place. This is our central access point for all information, for the digital service results, for the issues that were identified. Customers also have the option via the Issues and Actions Management application to follow up on the actionable items that are supposed to be resolved. Yeah? So from our perspective, 3 main applications: delivery center, service results, kind of a digitized way or format of the outcome of the service delivery, and issues and actions. And before I go into the details in the system, the content, of course, in the customer tenant in the area of services comes from SAP. So you as a customer are dependent on SAP consultants delivering via the platform. Contrary to what we had in Solution Manager, for Cloud ALM for Service, it's not necessary for the consultant to access the customer's Cloud ALM tenant. We, SAP, have our own tenant. We have our own applications. They are very similar to what you will see on the customer tenant. They are not exactly the same, because you can imagine, for instance, we have an application inside SAP to maintain service master data. Yeah, that isn't necessary on the customer tenant. But we, inside SAP, have our own tenant, and then via communication between the tenants, the customers receive information. So there is a data exchange between SAP and the customer tenant to make sure both parties can collaborate. Probably at some stage, maybe some ALM summit in the future, we could also consider telling customers a little bit about our experience running that SAP internal tenant, because when it comes to volumes, just a short number, we currently have around about 4,000 named users on that tenant. We are currently in the process of onboarding additional service organizations. We have already 14,000 named users on that tenant. They are not all active yet, but they will become active. Not sure if they all, but let's say 10,000 in total will become active. And of course, those are huge user numbers. So I don't think there is a single customer tenant that even comes close to these user numbers. And we are operating our own tenant there. And we are also making or learning lessons that probably customers could also benefit from. Yeah, but just for your information, we have huge user numbers on the internal tenant, and at least from performance side and so on, there aren't really any problems because of this. Yeah, so Cloud ALM overall is able to handle quite large user numbers. So we went live in May 2022. Just a little bit of history with SAP Max Attention, Active Attention, and Value Assurance. And we went live with Enterprise Support. Enterprise Support, there are still some services that are not fully integrated into Cloud ALM for Service, so there the rollout is still ongoing. And let's have a look now what we are talking about when we say Cloud ALM for Service, that these services are delivered via Cloud ALM for Service. So as I said, we have Service Delivery Center as our central access point for all information regarding service delivery, issues and action management for all follow-up activities. And then you see the SAP Readiness Check as a very specific service content here as an additional tile. That SAP Readiness Check is also available typically here under the implementation part. Yeah, so that one I'm not going to go into details into this. Let's have a look at the Service Delivery Center. So typically, this, by the way, is the official SAP demo tenant. So if you, as a customer, want to find out, play a little bit around, you can do that here via the user Susan service. I have the list of services that were delivered. So let's go in. At the moment, you can see it says 0 services. There is a date selection here. So let's close and say what are the services that were delivered this year. There are 2 services. If I just go back quickly, you can also see there are shortcuts here. You also have an option to provide favorites that in case you want to go in quicker. Maybe just one back. One comment here. This, we already have gotten feedback to this from customers. SAP typically refers to services via the so-called SO. Yeah, that's this lovely 8-digit number that you see there. And via our official service name, we've already gotten feedback from customers who said, well, that's nice, but I don't want to have to memorize the SAP Service Catalog by heart to understand where I can find my information. So we haven't shipped it yet, but there will come an option for customers to provide their own functions, their own description, so that they can more easily find the service information. Yeah, so let's go into the service. Here, the Go Live support session that was delivered in August. And you can see here some information, service system and scope. You can see who from SAP delivered that service. And then you have a look here at the preparation tasks. So this is stuff that is coming from SAP, where SAP is telling you, oh, I need system connection. I need a node that needs to be implemented. And you can communicate here with SAP. You can provide comments if you want to make sure that not just the person you're sending the email to, but everybody that is supposed to know knows what the status is. And then if we are going in here, you can also provide in the attachments area, so maybe let me open the sidebars a little bit. Attachment, sorry, is here. You can provide some information regarding the system landscape, org structure, any attachment that you want to upload, and that is relevant for the service delivery. Now for these attachments, short reminder, the attachments are not stored on your Cloud ALM tenants, so they don't contribute to the 8 gig quota. There's a separate document storage for that, because of course we also recognize here, if we have information that is relevant for service delivery, that shouldn't be, providing that information shouldn't be hindered by customers being concerned about, oh, I'm close to reaching my 8 gig quota. Yeah, so this, what you put here as attachments, does not contribute to that quota. And then you can also provide notes in case you don't have an attachment that you want to upload. So if you have here, for instance, a preparation call, you want to track information, that can be provided. And anything that is added here is replicated back to SAP. Yeah, again, because of course the idea here is collaboration. And then we have the attachments I mentioned. Let's quickly go back here to just show you. This information comes from SAP, that there is a service supposed to be delivered. That means if you have a Cloud ALM tenant and you don't have a service delivery scheduled, like you saw here for how I did it, let's see if I can do it like this. If I put 2025, it's going to be empty. Yeah, I don't have anything. So that simply means there isn't anything that was sent from SAP for that time frame. The way we identify which tenant is supposed to receive the information is a little bit unique for service. Again, nothing new, but a short reminder. We have something called tenant mapping, because we have really large customers who have a variety of customer numbers, but from an organizational perspective, service information should all end up with the same people in the same tenant. So in service, other than in the other areas of Cloud ALM, you can decide what customer number should be mapped for what to what tenant. Yeah, so it's up to the customer to provide a mapping here. So it could be that some of the service orders that I saw here are not related to the customer number that this Cloud ALM tenant was commissioned for. Yeah, the word to remember here is SAP. Why we talk about global ultimates, of course, the customer numbers have to somehow belong together. Yeah, so it can't be that Daimler decides, oh, I want to see service information for Henkel. That wouldn't work. Okay, then if the delivery happens, the service consultants from SAP provide issues as an outcome and provide a service result. Yeah, so service result, that's this application here, where I can see the management summary, I can see meeting minutes, system landscape, so any kind of information that was provided by the consultants, and also the issues and actions. Now, yeah? So maybe just to repeat, you're asking if there's an API available from Cloud ALM to service providers, to partners, you mean? Yeah. Answer is not yet. Yeah. Yeah, at the moment there aren't any APIs available. Yeah, and unfortunately I can't give you an estimate yet when they will be available. We know that the whole topic of services delivered by partners is a topic that's going to come, but at the moment we don't have a timeline for that yet. Okay, so what's new? Well, the first part of what's new is something that isn't so much a functional change, at least not initially, but it's more content change. So as I said initially, we started with SAP Active Attention, SAP Max Attention, Enterprise Support with these kind of service contracts. And SAP internally, we are onboarding additional contract types onto Cloud ALM. So this Monday, 4 days ago, Preferred Success started delivering via Cloud ALM for Service. Preferred Success, for those of you who don't know, is a service offering from SAP targeted to cloud customers. And they started going live with Asia. So they have a phased rollout by region. I think sometime end of October, EMEA is supposed to come. That means customers can now also consume the results, find their preferred success services in Cloud ALM for Service, can consume their service results there, find their issues, and so on for those service deliveries. Initially, might sound a little bit like, oh, okay, yeah, not sure how this is relevant for me. This one was a particularly interesting one because it came with quite a few feature requests where the Preferred Success colleagues told us, yes, in order for us to onboard, we need to have certain functions available in Cloud ALM for Service. So one that came specifically from Cloud ALM for Service, let me maybe show it here, is this one. So Cloud ALM or Preferred Success said we are going live with Asia Pacific. They don't speak English there. We want our customers to be able to have their service outcomes, their service results in their local language. Now, in this day and age, probably 15 years ago, those things would have been manually translated. We, of course, now use machine translation. On the long run, the idea is for customers to be able to say, oh, I want this service result also in Japanese. As a first version, we built it that on the SAP internal tenant, the consultant can trigger that translation. Yeah, so you can see here in preparation for that demo, I triggered the translation to German. So that service result is now also available in German. On the customer tenant, you get this little caution here, because it's a machine translation. We have to make sure that you're aware that there could be some glitches in there as well. So at the moment, as a customer, if I want to have that translation, I need to call my service delivery consultant or contact them via email and say, oh, can you also provide that in? And we have German, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. Yeah, provide that in any of those languages. But of course, the outcome is then also available to the customer. Yeah, and it's not just here for the service result. It's the same for the issues and actions. Then, so this is the machine translation. Another function that we shipped in middle of this year was the comment function for issues and actions. This is something, if I'm just going into the issue here, you can see there's the description. Again, I have the option to switch if I want to, but of course now I want to work with these issues and actions. So what customers can provide, similar to the comment function in project and task management, they can provide comments here, they can reply on comments. These comments are not sent back to SAP. We don't care about what the customer communicates among themselves. What we do care about is once you set that issue to done, we want to know, because of course that has an impact also on future service deliveries. Yeah, so if I have this status here, if I go to edit And if I change that status here to also in progress, if I say I'm working on it and I change it to in progress, that information is replicated back to SAP. We don't care about personal data. None of the personal data is replicated back. So if you put that on Mr. Smith, that Mr. Smith is supposed to work on that, we don't care, yeah, but we want to know about status changes. Then just a short reminder again for the data mapping, we changed our behavior. It used to be that the customers had to explicitly give consent in order to receive service data. That mechanism has changed. Yeah. Probably bears repeating. I think it was already mentioned, might have already been mentioned at the last ALM summit, but it bears repeating to just make sure if you commission a new Cloud ALM tenant, data transfer from SAP is automatically active, and the moment you commission it, you get data 3 months into the past. If you want additional historical data, you can also request that via incident to be triggered. Good. Then you saw, if you remember on Monday, Preeti actually showed in the keynote, she gave an outlook on the QGate assessment as part of Clean Core, QGate assessment for Clean Core. So this, you will also see on our roadmap, is a topic we are currently working on to provide better integration here. The first manual integration was provided. So what that meant is that if I have, and I'm going into the issues and actions management app for that, if I have a service delivery for a QGate assessment, not sure what's happening. If I have a QGate assessment service delivery, and out of that service delivery, typically there are standalone actions created. What I can now do is I can export, and we're talking Cloud ALM, so we're talking incremental changes, was first provided via Excel. I have the option here to download and then use this Excel and upload these tasks into my project, into my Clean Core project. Now, again, this is the first version. What we're working on is to provide a better integration, yeah? Because, of course, this is, we know that this is not the end goal to have an Excel download, upload. There should be a better, ideally automatic integration for getting the issues into the projects that you're working on. Okay, then we have a small change, so that I already mentioned, description field for services. A small change was shipped a while back, actually, that SAP can provide a description. This will, as I said, be extended to also have upcoming the option for customers to provide descriptions. Then the option to share links, service information via email. So if I go here, just quickly showing you, yeah, so this little button here that I have the option, if you want to have someone to take a look also inside, inside your customer tenant, to share the link to someone who's supposed to work in the preparation or in the follow-up on the service. And last but not least, the limitation of service data to the standard tenant. This goes back to what Nicola mentioned again during the keynote. I think it was announced 2 weeks ago that SAP has this option for the tenant extension. And the tenant extension led to a little bit of discussions from our side, because one of the use cases why you might want a tenant extension is to have kind of a test tenant that you can play around a little bit. And the problem with service data is it's coming from SAP. It is productive data. We don't have test data as such in there. So we had to make sure that in a tenant that a customer would consider as test tenant, that they would not inadvertently play around and update, change our service data that was created, our issues that we identified. So the way we did it is that we said service information can only be replicated to the standard tenant. Meaning if you have a tenant extension, you can't have that tenant in the tenant mapping. It doesn't get provided as an option to receive service data. Yeah, so just for you guys to keep in mind that if you're working with that, basically what will happen if you look into your tenant extensions, into your Cloud ALM tenant, if you go into the service area, there will be empty. There will be nothing in there. Yeah, we have initially when we started discussing this, we also discussed a little bit. Yeah, maybe we should also provide test data then. And internally, we have that function because, of course, when we test, we need to have test data available. But that is something probably for the longer run. Okay, let's have a look at our roadmap at the Outlook. So in addition to Preferred Success, we also plan to go live, and by saying we, I mean, of course, the business area, to onboard cloud prepackaged attached services to SAP Cloud ALM. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard that term before. Even SAP internally, it's a little bit of a new terminology. Basically what it is, these are services that come automatically with a customer subscribing to a cloud product. Yeah, so you can imagine if you buy a car and the car, your garage tells you the first checkup is free. It's kind of that kind of scenario. You subscribe to an SAP cloud application and you get certain service delivery as part of that description. Cloud prepackaged attached, again, came for us with a couple of new features that were developed. Mostly, I would say at the moment, on the internal side, because of course you can imagine if the customer just has a subscription, they don't have a contract, service contract as such, the whole way that the contract is managed is slightly different. They start in October with their first service and they will continue to onboard service by service. So they have a phased rollout, not in the sense of regions, but in the sense of services. And probably it will take them all through next year to completely onboard. What we also have, and that I already mentioned, and I wanted to put it on here as well, is this clean core QGate assessment integration. That's a topic that is going to be on our agenda for the first half of next year to provide a seamless integration there. Yeah, and there from a process flow perspective, there are quite a lot of things that come with that because you could imagine that there is some kind of automation also required. And we are currently in the phase of detailing this out and estimating and seeing what can be provided by when. In addition to that, we have a lot of small requirements that we want to work on, but we have sort of 4 major ones that we see for the next 12 months. The first one is the topic Insights to Action. That's going to be a big one. Basically, the idea on the long run is to provide self-service capabilities for customers, making use of dashboards, making use of intelligence, getting issue suggestions to customers with the option for customers then to say, yes, I see that that's an issue, I accept that issue, or saying, no, I don't really agree that that's an issue. Yeah, so insights to action will be a big topic in the next 12 months. What we also have on our roadmap, we'll see a little bit also from customers, how urgent that is for customers, is the whole topic. Once you have an issue and you're trying to resolve it, what do you do with that? I mean, ideally you can resolve it yourself, yeah? But if you can't, who helps you? Do you contact SAP? So do we have a feedback and support process integration for customers to come back and say, this issue here, I don't understand it. What additional help can you offer me? Do we have SAP Joule usage to help with the action implementation? So the colleagues are currently running a prototype to see how SAP Joule could be used to help with the implementation of actions. And of course, on the whole topic of issues and actions management, we are also aware of customers often don't want to use Cloud ALM for the handling of the issues. So the topic we had at the Max Attention Summit, we had a session with the customers, and I think this last one, the issues and action management integration, got the most votes from the customer, was the most important one, to provide APIs to enable customers to manage their issues outside Cloud ALM. Yeah, so to have, I don't know, Jira or ServiceNow or something like that available. Of course, the challenge there from our side is that, as I said, we from SAP delivered the service, we identified the issue and the action, and we want to know if that issue has been resolved. So it's not just providing an API for customers to get the data out, but also to provide information back in, so that the next service delivery that comes along from SAP and that takes a look at the issues and actions that were identified in the previous delivery has a chance of finding out, that the customer has actually worked on and that is resolved. Yeah, because of course our service delivery consultants, they don't have access to the customer's Jira or the customer's ServiceNow implementation. Okay. Further information, as basically for everything else, we have our SAP support portal. We have the information. I always say, if it's a rainy Sunday afternoon, you don't know what to do. There's plenty of stuff to keep you busy. There are videos, there is documentation that you can go through. You can use the Cloud ALM demo tenant, have a look at our application. And if you've identified features that you would require in Cloud ALM for Service, there's also an influence campaign where you can contribute and put in your requests, similar to the campaigns that we have for implementation and for operation. Okay, that's it from my side. Glad to see us all still awake. That means that you all got enough sleep after yesterday's party. Any further questions?